All right. That's a little music to fade in. I'm working on my podcast still. I'm trying to get some recorded tracks, but for now, I'm just kind of play my guitar a little bit once in a while just to add a little bit to the podcast. It's a work in progress. Anyway, I welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming back to Beyond the Bars, Spiritual Insights from Prisons and Life, and Gedalya, Folk Rock Rabbi. So thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to go a little bit deeper into the places where music, meaning, and real life stories all kind of come together. So I have an interesting, a little bit of a funny story. If you may have read it on my blog, I was visiting Westchester Jail in between the high holidays, and I went along with a few other people, and we brought some cookies and cake for the inmates. And I remember, so I started playing, I was doing one of my songs, and I noticed that no one was eating any of their cookies. So I said, hey, guys, eat some cookies. We put some special ingredients in them. And I didn't realize what I said. I meant, like holy spiritual ingredients, but I noticed the security guards, like their heads whipped around. They were looking at me, and I saw them, and I realized how they must have taken it. So I said, no, I didn't mean those kind of ingredients. I meant like holy ingredients. And anyway, all the inmates cracked up, and they did actually start eating them. But there were really only holy ingredients inside. Anyway, I have a few new things going on. I'm preparing to visit some prisons in Virginia and reaching out to other prisons around the country. I've mentioned every state is so different, and the paperwork and the background checks and everything you have to do. But hopefully I'll have some interesting stories coming up. So if you've been following my work, one of the most challenging things, though, it's like every show is so different. I never know what's going to happen. I get to places and the faces are tough and the arms are folded, and I start to play, and little by little, the walls just drop, and people start to listen and get a kind of little bit, they ease up a little bit, start to nod along, tap along a little bit sometimes. And it's always a good feeling, to see that it's possible to bring hope to these people, even in these hard places. And, they've done things that they regret. And, like I say, I'm not there to take them out. I'm there well, the truth is I really am there to take them out in a spiritual way while I'm there, to elevate them a little bit out of their situation, but hopefully to also plant some seeds with the songs and the messages so that they'll have some things to think about and can help them in their, in their transition to trying to work on themselves. So I'd like to add something new that I'd like to talk about today, which is a project I'm working on that as I'm traveling around to the different prisons in different cities all over the country, I have an idea that I'm calling On the Heels of the Messiah. Because I'm curious about the spiritual pulse in America. What's going on out there? People are searching. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of questions. A lot of things. So many things with the internet and so many new ideas and new things going on, and people are, I see, turning more and more to spirituality. And I'm curious, what it's like in different parts of the country. So I'm in the process of writing a song. It's kind of going to be like a little bit of a funny song called On the Road, the Spiritual Pulse of America, kind of talking about, the East, the West, the South, the North, different places, and, how they express spirituality, and also teaching some of my own spiritual ideas and thoughts and opening up some questions and things for people to think about. This idea, On the Heels of the Messiah, is primarily going to be on my new Patreon page. So if you're familiar with Patreon, I'm launching a page right now. I'm hoping to develop a community of people who are interested in spiritual growth. And you can look up, I have two pages I'm starting. One is for Gedalya, Folk Rock Rabbi, and one is for A New Song USA. I'm trying to keep them a little bit separate, and I may not share everything on my Gedalya page, on my new song page, because not every song I write is really, appropriate for both pages. I'm trying to keep it a little bit separate and keep my musical, my freedom from my music a little bit for myself, and be able to share songs that maybe I wouldn't share in prison sometimes, but I like to share them with you on Patreon. So if you're curious, you want to see what it's like, please join me on Patreon and become part of this new community. I hope to see you there. This is Gedalya, Beyond the Bars, and you all know the song Waiting for Redemption, right? I'm waiting for redemption every day and every night. Yeah, okay. So we're all waiting for redemption, and hopefully it will be soon. On the heels of the Messiah, hopefully will take us right to that point of redemption. Anyway, this is Gedalya, Folk Rock Rabbi, wishing you all only good things.